Continuing our story, we have a lock. We pretty much pick up at lockdown ship during this time here, and it's in space. Circumnavigating the globe, and we actually see other of his bounty hunters, other his workers, just working on the ship, making it better and improving it. But what we see is lockdown himself, pretty much fresh here, no scars yet, by the way. So this lockdown is pretty much just looking at holograms of all the Autobots he hasn't captured, but the one he wants the most is Optimus Prime. Where is he? We then cut to the Los Santos Observatory where work is being done on Jazz. He actually has a new arrangement with Dr. Rockwell. This is when Jazz, finally gets off the work table and he asks him, is it done? To which Rockwell says, yeah, the work is done. You'll have the full combination of your cybertronian elements with the combination of the new mammalian DNA I gave you. You should be fine. I suggest you go test it out. This is when we all pick up at a underground fighting club. We see a lot of people fighting here. However, it's the champions round, right? And we see Jury demolishing Vega. Vega just stood no chance. He got demolished. He got clapped up. Everything. And we actually see Duncan, Jeff, and DJ, and a little bit of Harold and Cody in the crowd as well. And they're actually, taking money from those who pretty much placed bets on Jury losing. And Duncan says, I hope the next guy is really good because he can actually, he's just making all this money. And this is when Jury grabs the mic from the ref and says, is anyone willing to challenge her? Pretty much begging at this point for a challenge. And this is when Jazz flips into the arena from, I guess you could say like a balcony, if you will. He pretty much challenges Jury right in there. Jury is a little bit amused, almost curious on how this guy is going to fare against her. We then see a shocked Duncan actually running towards the cage, begging Jazz not to fight, that he thinks he's going to lose. He's not going to, last long. And this is when Jury says, no, he stepped into the arena. He might as well participate in the fight. And this is when the referee says begin, and Jury takes an early lead due to her already being more experienced in these cage fights. She actually tags Jazz a good amount of times, causing him to pretty much fumble around here. Jazz is completely, taken back a little bit as Jury begins to land kick after kick after kick, punch after punch. She begins wailing on him, telling him to at least make this entertaining, to which Jazz pretty much catches her and says, my turn. And this is where we actually see Jazz pretty much just wail on her over and over and over again. He gets the upper hand immediately. She can no longer hit him. She doesn't even see his punches anymore. And this is when Jazz pretty much puts his foot on top of her and she yields. She actually, once he helps her up, she actually is infatuated with him, as no person has been able to beat her like that. And this is when we actually see we see into the crowd where Jeff is pretty much cheering and telling Duncan he had no idea that Jazz was this good at fighting, into which Duncan is actually amused and says, me neither. Unfortunately, Duncan does have to give up some of his money because Jury lost that day. We then pick up, let's say 5 or 6 hours later, we're back at, Jazz and Duncan's shared residence. Duncan and Courtney are both just relaxing together in the room. Courtney's reading while Duncan's listening to music, and Jazz actually walks in and checks on him and tells him that he'll be back for a little bit. This is when he actually goes outside and turns into a cybertronian form. Simply stretches his legs and remarks that he hasn't been like this for a long time. Unfortunately, he didn't make sure nobody was around and was caught by Jury, who was actually very amused by this and says, this is interesting. We then pick up back at Lockdown ship, and Lockdown gets a signal. It's Cybertronian. It's in Los Santos. He then tells the troops to prepare his miniature ship and that he'll be departing soon for the Cybertronian signal. Hopefully, it's an Autobot. And with that, Lockdown lands in Los Santos and transforms into his Lamborghini mode and zooms off after the signal. This is when we see Jury pretty much riding around in Jazz. Jazz actually goes full speed doing stunts, actually doing parkour maneuvers, and even in like busy traffic, he's able to outmaneuver the other cars, and even able to do things that just defy gravity. Basically, his vehicle mode is just not abide by the laws of physics anymore. And why would it? It's part cybertronian. And this is where they go to, I guess you kind of say like I guess you could say like the tunnel area where, you know, the water and the sewer kind of connects here. And Jury and Jazz actually have a heart-to-heart, talking about how Jury got into fighting and what Jazz actually is, explaining his origins and how he got here. But before, you know, they could actually finish this conversation, Jazz notices something in the background. The Lamborghini just stops and transforms. He gets up and tries to maneuver himself in front of Jury, but then he gets shot right in the chest. However, he is able to push Jury out the way in time, but the impact is so powerful, it sends him flying into the brick wall. All right, it sends him, sorry, not a brick. It sends him flying into the concrete wall, and Jury is shocked. She actually looks scared, asking Jazz if he's okay. Jazz then states that they need to get out of here now in the cybertronian form, and grabs her, transforms, and drives. And this isn't any kind of, you know, your typical high-speed driving. This is escape driving. This is when Lockdown turns to his Lamborghini and says, "You're not getting away from me this time," and drives off. We then get like a high-speed we get a high-speed, you know, chase here. And Jory is actually like scared at this point. She's like asking, "What's going on? Who is that? Why did he shoot you?" And this is when Jazz remarks, "This is the man that's been hunting me and my fellow Autobot brothers down to the point where I might be the last one left. And it seems he's found me due to my cybertronian form." Feeling like an idiot, but he still, you know, does his job. He tries to protect Jury the best he can. And they go into I think it was Pedestro or Pedico Forest or whatever. And Jazz pretty much drops off Jury and tells her to run into the woods, which she reluctantly does. And Jazz takes out his crescent cannon and begins getting ready to fire. Lockdown then stops midway, or at least a good few feet away, and then transforms, asking Jazz where Optimus Prime is, to which Jazz says he's not going to tell him. And this is when Lockdown actually turns into his turret mode. Yeah, Lockdown actually was supposed to have a turret mode as well as a face gun. So, yeah. He begins firing, but Jazz uses this moment to just transform and outmaneuver him. As Lockdown tries to shoot, Jazz pretty much transforms into his car mode and pretty much does what he does to Brawl here. And pretty much just tries to disable the gun the best he can here, but Lockdown recalls it, and the two get into a miniature scuffle, to which results in Jazz being thrown off. They then get into a huge hand-to-hand fight, with Jazz fighting more intensely than he did when Lockdown had Cemetery Wind around. Jazz then remarks about how he's killed all of his friends, how he's killed those who pretty much mattered to him. Into which Lockdown said if he gave him the information, that wouldn't have happened. And this is when Lockdown pretty much not only thrashes Jazz, he then shoots him again. This time the impact sends him tumbling through the forest, pretty much just wiping out trees, wiping out any small, you know, shacks, buildings, even, you know, taking out a power pole. And Jory runs up to him and tells Jazz they need to get out of here. They at least need to hide some way. Jazz, reluctantly turning back into his human form, kicks up some dust so that they can at least, you know, look like they're not, you know, pretty much create a smoke screen, if you will, and they move. Lockdown is able to eventually reach the area and tries scanning, calling this a cowardly move even for the first lieutenant. They both make it to a safe point, and Jury says she's going to have to fight him. She's going to have to help him somehow. And this is when Jazz pretty much says no, he doesn't want her to help, or at least put her in harm's way. But this is when he hears a growl, and it's a wolf, a very angry wolf. It's aggressive towards them. However, Jazz thinks for a minute and says, "This is it," and scans it. Now, back to Lockdown. He's searching for Jazz here, and he tells the Autobot to come on out. And this is when he feels a slash right across his chest, then against his eye. And then when the creature stops, it's Jazz in a cybertronian wolf form. This then turns into pretty much a one-sided beatdown, to the point where Lockdown is crawling away the best he can, but anytime he does, Jazz uses the jaws of the beast to pretty much pull him back. This is when he turns into his robot form and begins to beat Lockdown some more. Lockdown is eventually able to transform, but Jazz pulls out his crescent cannon and still lands more shots on him, telling Lockdown to get back here. Lockdown begins to just drive off. He runs and runs until he's able to reach his ship. His troops are able to repair him. Let's say it takes a day because all the damage that is done. Lockdown wonders what he should do next, but this is when he gets a call from Harold Attinger, the CEO or the head of Cemetery Wind, if you will, and he tells him they found him. They found Optimus Prime. Into which Lock says, finally, he can claim his bounty and leave this wretched world. And this when he looks at Jazz one more time at his new beast form and says, one day. We then pick up with Jazz and Jory back at, well, his room this time. Yeah, I think y'all know where this is going. But this isn't how this story ends. It doesn't end with Jazz and Jory having a night of passion with each other. It ends with Optimus Prime taking on Cemetery Wind soldiers. And that's where we're going to leave it here. So we found out Optimus Prime is alive. Jazz has a new beast form in his Cybertronian mode. Will he get one in his human form? Will he only use his Cybertronian form when it's, for those kind of emergencies? What's going to happen with him and Jory? But hey, I'm glad you guys enjoyed this chapter. This is a little bit of a remake for here, and I hope you guys pretty much enjoyed it. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and share with your friends. This is Legendary Grimlock, and I'll see you guys later for Chapter 3. Peace.